swaps, options, and futures is the name of one of the panels happening at the Risk Management Conference. Joining me now is Charles de Boissezon. He is in the Equities Derivatives Division of Société Générale. Great to talk to you.
Nice to be here.
What exactly are dividend swaps?
Dividend swaps is really a fascinating story. It's an instrument that enables investors to express a view on the dividend side of the equity story. When you're long a stock, you're long its cash flow stream, but also many other parameters. And actually, we've got a lot of people who are interested in just the cash flow capacity of a company. So we get away all this sort of noise from other factors that influence price discovery on the equity side of things. And you just express a view on what will be the future dividends on a different set of maturities paid out by either a stock or an index. And here, in the US, on the S&P, there's been new contracts, option contracts developed on the overall index, very recently by you guys at the CBOE, and we're very excited to be here to discuss further about this underlying.
Before we get to that, why was this created?
Well, initially, this product was born out of flows. Banks structurally are long dividends. What we tend as banks to sell to end clients is long exposure to equities with the long-term maturities, and that's the same case for pretty much any other bank. Typically, when you're long forwards, you've got exposure to financing, repo, volatility, and dividends, and all of these elements usually were hedged, but that of dividends. That market was born about 10 odd years ago. It was entirely OTC. And you can see the growth in that market because now we've had listed contracts in Europe on the Eurostoxx 50 index for about close to 2 years now. The FTSE 100 index more recently, the CAC 40, but also single stock dividend futures. So it's really a market which is growing, and even more so as we see option contracts on these underlyings. So this is typical of a market that is getting more and more mature.
Could you talk more about how this relates to the options market using these dividend swaps and how volatility plays a role into that as well?
That's the other exciting part of dividend swaps and options on dividend swaps and futures. In the end, when you're exposed to dividends, somehow you're also exposed to the equity story. But the difference is that although dividends are correlated to equities in a sense, when you buy the stock market, you buy an expectation of a future stream of dividends. The volatility side of dividends is quite different, because what I like personally about dividends is that they are anchored into your rally. In the end, what will matter is the exact amount of dividends being paid by a single stock or the index. It will not be subject to any personal opinions or fear, greed, the number of sellers or buyers. It is what we observe as being actually paid. That means that what we have is what we call the pool to realized effect. All the implicit contracts get pooled towards the actual value which will be realized. That means in volatility terms that vol gets towards zero. So we've got some strategies, for example, currently on the DEC 11 contracts, which are to sell straddles or sell strangles, just to have a scenario and a view on dividends and then just sell vol.
Okay, so who's using these dividend swaps right now?
I'd say there's two different actors. There's some of them who focus on the short-term maturities, and they very much focus on the single stock stories. Because in the end, an index is nothing more than the addition of all the constituents that make it up. Some of the questions that we have, for example, revolve around financials dividends. Will they pay them? Are they able to pay them? What's going to be the implications from the sort of government intervention? So they express a view on the sort of short-term story. The longer-term story is more, I'd say, our asset allocation pension fund clients who view really dividends as a new asset class. Because in the end, it's an exposure to the future stream of cash flows. It is correlated to equities, but with a lower vol. So if you look at your sort of efficient frontier, it really makes sense to have a pocket of dividends as part of your overall portfolio. So these are very different types of players.
Well, it's great speaking with you, Charles de Boissezon of Société Générale.
Thank you.